Hello, beautiful. Today I'm going to talk about boundaries, and I'm going to share with you 5 tips on why having boundaries right now today is going to improve your confidence. But first, let's just talk about why boundaries are so hard to have. And I want you to think of boundaries, it helps me anyway, to think of boundaries as a line. And I looked up the definition of a boundary for you, and it says a line that marks the limits of an area. It's a dividing line. So think of it as when you go to the lake with your family. And maybe if you have kids, they're playing in the water. And you are at the shore on your beach towel, and your kids are playing in the water. They have that divider line by most lakes where it's family friendly to go, so you don't cross it. And what happens if you cross that line is it puts you at risk. They don't want you to. That's the safety line. That's where it's acceptable to go, right? So if you cross that line, there's people that are boating out in the lake. It gets deeper. So it's just not good to cross that line. So think of boundaries in your life. What feels good to you and what doesn't, right? This is going to be individual for each one of us. Why are boundaries so hard? One reason, I think it goes back to the caveman days. So think of yourself if you were in a village and there was no one for miles and miles and miles, and your life depended on every role that the village played. So maybe you would have a role of gathering food or preparing breakfast. Everyone that used to live in villages back in the caveman days had a role to survive. Maybe the men would go out and hunt in the winter and the women would stay back with the children. And so it was important for everyone to know what their role was and to do it. Nowadays, we have a lot of choices. We have a lot of accessibility to a lot of different things. So many times we're on our own. We don't need necessarily that village to stay alive. So because we have that free will, we can say no. And a lot of times, I think it's kind of embedded in us that we are afraid that we are going to be cast out. And think back to the village days, the caveman days, if you said no, or if you didn't want to do something, you got casted out of that village. And therefore you would die. You wouldn't survive. You needed that team. So I feel we still have it in us that we don't want to be casted away. We want to be a part of something. We want to be a part of a group, either if it's a work environment or a friendship or some relationship. We want to be liked. We want to be approved of. I think it kind of goes back into the DNA from those caveman days. It's hard because we don't want to disappoint people. It kind of goes to the people pleasing. Kind of the same thing where we don't want to be casted out. We don't want people to think badly of us. Because we ultimately, if you have a lot of good people around you, we love our tribe and we want to keep them around. And so I want you to ask yourself though, is it coming from a story that you have in your head? Many times we create these stories. I always say I have more stories in my mind than the New York Library, right? I tell myself so many things that aren't even true. And most of us do that. We create these scenarios in our head that's not true. So what stories are you telling yourself? And take time when someone asks you for a favor, ask if you can do something for them. Before you say yes or no, take a moment, take a day, take 24 hours. Tell them, I'm gonna think on this. I'm gonna look at my calendar and I will let you know. I always give it 24 hours. I always say, I'm gonna take a look at my calendar and I will get back to you before I say yes or no, because sometimes we want to say yes out of an impulse. We want to people please. It's not that we want to do the thing. We want to get love, right? And that's not a way we get love. That's a way we get superficial validation, superficial approval. So ask yourself, does it feel right to say yes? Does it feel right to say no for you, not for the other person, not to get anything, right? This is about just, do you have this to give in you? And so take your time with that and ask yourself, even write down in a notebook or journal and ask yourself, if you say no, what does that mean? What story are you telling yourself? If you tell your boss no, does that mean that you might get denied a raise or there's trust lost? Maybe that's a story you're telling yourself. Or if you say yes, maybe you're hoping for a raise or hoping to build that trust. So it's important to have that self-awareness and self-reflection to ask ourselves why you're saying yes or why you're saying no. And we want to be liked. We have to ask ourselves, is there something deeper? If you're constantly overgiving, why are you giving? Is it because you want validation and approval and to be liked? Well, that can only come from within. I want you to think of like a spring, a well, something natural in the ground, right? It has to come from within. And when you are full of and you're energized and you're feeling good, then it pours out. Then you can give freely. But it has to start within you. And a lot of times I believe we think two things. We think we're not enough, or we think we're too much. Think of times in your life right now where maybe it's at work, maybe it's with your partner, your kids, maybe it's your parenting. Maybe you think you're not enough for your kids, for your spouse, for your job, for your friends, just being a daughter or a son, or whatever role it is that you feel is lacking. Ask yourself, are you feeling like you are not good enough? Are you putting that pressure on yourself? Or do you feel, on the other hand, like you're too much? You're too loud, you're too bold. So this is really getting to the core of self-love. And this is what I help my clients with. Really feeling that love for oneself, really finding clarity and discovering yourself. So if you want support in that, I can definitely help you. I am your woman for that. So please reach out. But let's get right into 5 ways that I almost can guarantee you, if you practice boundaries, you will build your confidence. Number 1, it builds trust. So think of someone in your life who is not afraid to say no, but they're warm about it, right? A lot of times we feel being assertive is aggressive, and those are way two different ends of the spectrum. Being assertive is expressing yourself in a warm, nurturing way. Being assertive is speaking your truth. It's saying what means something to you. And the people that love you, this is a good test, because the people that love you for you, they will respect that and they will know your heart, and you don't have to defend yourself and you don't have to give reasons why. They get you. And so you want those real people around you anyway. So if anything, this is going to get rid of all the superficial people in your life that don't really know who you are anyway. So it builds trust. You begin to learn to trust yourself when you speak your truth, and you trust other people. So it builds very authentic and real. This is kind of going into number 2, but authentic and real relationships with yourself and with other people. So that is, and when we have those real authentic relationships, that's you shining. That's you feeling full. Think of relationships where you and a friend, or you and a coworker, or you and your partner are doing something that you both enjoy because you both said yes to doing something even if it's a simple coffee date or talking about a subject you both have in common, you're both saying yes in that moment, and you shine. This is an expression of your soul. This is an expression of who you are at your core. This is you living your best life. And it's not hard to do. It's not hard to get there. It's saying yes to the right things and no to things that aren't for you, maybe ever, or at least in this moment. So it's really about trusting in your intuition. And when you trust yourself, you begin to really shine with confidence because you are sure. When you trust yourself, you don't have to ask all your friends and all the people that you know for their opinion. You're going to trust your opinion. And it shows confidence and it builds confidence. This also, another tip, it avoids burnout. So if you were constantly chasing approval, validation, or trying to people please, trying to work your way up the ladder in any kind of relationship, in hopes that saying yes and doing is going to get you to the top, then you are going to burn out really fast and you are going to be exhausted. And that's when we lose ourselves. We lose ourselves because we're living based on the stories we are telling ourselves from what other people want or expect of us. And we lose ourselves. We lose what's important and what we value. So if I want you to do this, write this down somewhere. I want you to go on Google after you're done watching this video and Google values. And I think Brene Brown, you could Google Brene Brown values. And all the values will pop up. And I want you to circle your top 3. What do you value? One of my biggest values is family. That is number 1. Another one is freedom. I really value having freedom in my life to do what feels good to me to do. So those are my top 2 values. I have more, but those are 2 that are just coming to my mind that I want to share with you because I do everything based on these values. When I have my children, if something comes up and it might conflict with them, with their schedule, I say no. That's an easy no for me. I have that boundary. When I don't have my children, I can open my schedule and do more things. But that's what feels good to me because being a mom to me and being with my children is very important to me. And you probably have different values and things that are important to you. So Google the values and circle your top 3. Get to know what is important to you because when you know what's important, it's easier to say yes and to say no. We learn about ourselves as we go. So that's another one. And the last one is self-love. It's being the mom that you needed, right? It's being the best friend that you need or needed. It's being the big sister that you need or needed. So we need to mother, or if you're a male, father ourselves. If you're watching this, more than likely you're an adult, and a lot of times we maybe needed things when we were growing up that we didn't get. Maybe that has left you feeling unloved, unimportant. So it's important to know now in your life that you get to make choices that feel good to you. We're not puppets, right? No one has us by a string, and we have the free will to make choices that feel good. So sometimes when I feel burned out, I ask myself, what is the next best loving thing I need to do for me right now in this moment? I tell you, I'll share with you a story. This was a while ago. I was just really feeling low, right? I don't remember what I was going through, but I was going through a hard time, and I was laying in bed, just exhausted, not feeling like getting up. And I just kind of was playing with my phone, and I felt a little inspiration of, I somehow ended on Pinterest. And then, you know how they have different Pinterest is very visual, so they had different things I was looking at. And all of a sudden, I kept looking at one thing that led to another thing, that led to another thing. And I was inspired. I think I was inspired to do a painting. So then it got me out of bed anyway. And I think I went to the store and like started a craft project or a painting project. But we have to ask ourselves, like, what feels good, right? So it's all about mothering yourself, guiding yourself, leading yourself. So when you think of a leader has boundaries. When you think of a king or queen, they have boundaries. They're not going to let things happen. They have to be the leader of their own life and take charge. So for this week going forward, this soul work, an action step I want you to take. And this is, I'm reading from my card deck. I created this self-awareness card deck that you can get on my website. If you go to AngelaRoseLLC.com, you can find my card deck there. So for this week, we're talking about boundaries. And I'm going to read you the action step that's on this card. Do my current boundaries feel clear? Do I need to redefine my boundaries? Write them out. So that's your action step for this week. To get clarity on what your boundaries are. And to get clarity on what your boundaries are, you can Google the value list to make sure that you are in alignment with your top 3 values. And you are not spreading yourself too thin, right? That's why it's important to know our values. So we're not spreading ourselves too thin. And the mantra for this week is, I am grateful for this experience. I respect and love myself and others. And I feel called, I'm just going to share with you on this boundaries card of what it says. I am kind, loving, and have clear boundaries because it is important for me to love and respect myself and you. So I want you to kind of, when we think of boundaries, we can think of aggression, right? We can think of being mean, or saying no is that there's negative things attached to it. So this week, I really want you to try to think of boundaries as confidence, as you are the leader of your life. You are the creator, because you are. You are creating your life with every choice you make. Every choice you make shows, right? You feel it. Whether it's the food you're eating, whether it's the people that you're hanging out with, where you work, what you do every day, it's going to show on the outside in the reality around you, and it's going to show, you're going to feel it on the inside. So maybe you need to have boundaries with yourself. So let me know what you think. If you feel called, join us in the Facebook group. You can, on Facebook, just go to Self-Love and Soulmates. So this week, we're going to be talking about boundaries. Let us know in the Facebook group, what boundaries do you have? What boundaries do you need? So I want this to be a group discussion so we can really talk about this, because boundaries are really important to have. And when we clean it up, when we know what feels good and we know what doesn't feel good, you will begin to feel confident. So again, just to review the 5 tips of why having boundaries will help you raise your confidence level. 1 is going to build trust within yourself and with other people, because we trust people that have boundaries. We trust people that tell us the truth, right? Number 2, it's going to show you're going to become confident. It shows confidence when you have boundaries. 3, you're being authentic and real. And you're going to surround yourself around more authentic and real people and have those really good relationships full of connection that you really desire. 4, it's going to avoid burnout, which is so important, because I want you to be energized. I want you to love yourself and your life and just really live from a high energy place. We can only do this when we have boundaries and say yes when it feels good, say no when it doesn't. 5, this is deepening your self-love. You're becoming your mother to yourself, your best friend to yourself, a lover to yourself, partner to yourself. You are your own best advocate. And this is the biggest form of self-love. I help people that are dating and in relationships know what their boundaries are. It's important to know where you stand. I help people that are in jobs or parenting. I have learned a lot in this past year, working a lot with feminine energy, of what my boundaries are as a mom and with my boys, and I'm redefining those, and we get to redefine those every day, all day long. You get to redefine your boundaries. If I said yes yesterday to something, maybe with my kids, or in the dating world, and that doesn't feel good today I get to say no, because we are the leader of our own life. I want you to think that you are on the throne. You are a king or you are a queen in your world. And so own it. Own yourself. Own your world. This is yours, and we get one shot at it. And I want you to live your best life. You deserve that. And you deserve to be happy. So please join us in the Facebook group. I would love to see your comments in there. I would love to see your face in there. And let me know how this goes for you. And I look forward to chatting with you on next week's topic. I believe in you. Keep shining.